Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Permanent Council, Your Excellency Ambassador Abdurrahmanov, Your Excellency Secretary General Mark Perron, the Brinkshop, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to meet with you today and to be back in this marvelous city of Vienna. As many of you may know, I had fond memories from my time as ambassador in Vienna, and indeed from my time in the Permanent Council after the Republic of Korea joined as an Asian partner for cooperation. It was 1999, exactly 11 years after, for me to come back to this room in my due capacity as Secretary General, when my predecessor, Kofi Annan, he addressed this council in 1999. So for me, both, it is 11 years after. I hope we have more open discussions and exchange of views in the future. Mr. Chairperson, as you said, I'm just back from visiting your country and the region. Just yesterday, I was speaking with your President, Mr. Nazarbayev. Let me begin by congratulating you on Kazakhstan's historic chairmanship, the first Central Asian country and the first post-Soviet republic to chair the OSCE. You bring unique experience. Since independence, you have successfully built the nation. You have introduced the policies of reform and modernization. You have preserved and celebrated the multicultural character of your nation with the full respect for religious and ethnic diversity. These experiences, coupled with your talent for consensus building, will contribute to the OSCE's search for solutions to a host of difficult issues. You have described the guiding principles of your chairmanship as trust, tradition, transparency, and tolerance. These are bedrock principles of both the United Nations and this organization, as well as the people we serve. Let me also thank you, all of you, for welcoming me during this holiday week. I'm also happy to be here in this 35th anniversary year of the founding document, the Helsinki Final Act. Through the years, the OSCE has shaped our modern world. By promoting dialogue, cooperation, and human rights, you helped end the Cold War. You have championed human dignity and empowered your citizens. Excellencies, we couldn't be meeting at a more important time. Let me repeat what I said at every stop of my visit in Central Asia. The United Nations is committed to assisting the countries of the region to live up to their potential and to their international obligations. My message was simple and direct. Modernization, social progress depend on a vibrant civil society, political participation, freedom of speech, and also critically upholding the rule of law. The bloodshed in Kyrgyzstan is a deeply troubling reminder of the vital importance of addressing such issues. As the chairperson in office said yesterday, there are political, economic, and social issues underlying the unrest. Just a few days ago, I was in Bishkek and talked with the parliamentary leaders. I had in-depth, long discussions with the President Bakiev. Protesters were on the street. Tensions had been building for months and growing. We have all seen what happened next. I'm deeply concerned about the violence and shocked by the loss of life which occurred in recent days. I urge restraint. It is time to work urgently on establishing constitutional order. Perhaps nothing better illustrates the need for the United Nations and OSCE to work closely in common cause. In fact, this morning, I called your chairperson in office, Foreign Minister Sodabayev, to discuss the situation. I have decided to send Mr. Jan Kubis as my special envoy to Kyrgyzstan, and Foreign Minister Sodabayev informed me that he was also dispatching an envoy to the country. We have agreed to coordinate closely on the ground. That is why I am here today. Chapter 8 of the United Nations Charter envisages a world in which regional organizations and the United Nations work together on all continents to prevent and manage and resolve crises. I deeply believe in this cooperation. In January, I convened a retreat in New York with the heads of regional organizations. I thank the OSCE Secretary General for his participation and important contribution. We are only beginning to realize the great potential of what we can do together. We have identified areas for improvement, better coordination, more sharing of information, more exchanges among our staff. Today, I would like to briefly address 5 practical areas for stronger, broader, and deeper cooperation. First, disarmament and non-proliferation. In Kazakhstan 2 days ago, I visited the former nuclear test site at Semipalatinsk. It was a sobering experience. Poisoned land, 1.5 million people still suffering the after effects of cancer and related disease, children with terrible birth defects. President Nazarbayev closed Semipalatinsk and banished the nuclear weapons. That was a visionary and courageous act. But that was 20 years ago. Today, we are at a new beginning. As a Secretary General, I have made disarmament and non-proliferation a leading priority of the United Nations. In October 2008, I offered my own 5-point action plan for nuclear disarmament. And last September, the Security Council held an historic summit meeting. Today in Prague, the Presidents of the United States and the Russian Federation signed a successor agreement to the Treaty on the Reduction and Limitation of Strategic Offensive Arms. That was a fresh start, indeed. I welcome U.S. President Obama's recent initiative to limit the use of nuclear weapons. Next week, we will meet for the Nuclear Security Summit in Washington. In May, we gather again for the 2010 NPT Review Conference. We must use every opportunity to realize our ultimate ambition, a world free of nuclear weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make a last point on this topic. We must not lose sight of the need for action on conventional weapons. The runaway trade in arms is a plague on humankind. It destroys the societies, encourages conflict, and undoes our good work in social and economic development. That is why my 5-point proposal includes limits on conventional weapons. In turn, that requires progress on the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. Negotiations on an arms trade treaty are scheduled for this summer in New York. The geography spanned by the OSCE includes the largest arms exporters in the world. OSCE members have already shown they take this as a serious responsibility, and the time set aside for negotiation is limited a mere 2 weeks. Therefore, I urge all of you to make the most of this opportunity to work toward a strong and robust treaty. Excellencies, our second opportunity, let us work together to secure peace. Today, a joint UN-OSCE mediation training exercise gets underway in Sweden. It is yet another example of ever closer consultation. The United Nations is working on conflict prevention with a number of OSCE institutions, among them the Conflict Prevention Center, the Office for Democratic Institutions and the Human Rights, and the High Commissioner on National Minorities. In the Balkans, we have worked effectively to help stabilize the region and prepare the way to a better future. We know what is required for success. A clear mandate, close coordination between headquarters and in the field, a focus on areas of respective expertise. Our cooperation has been most effective when it concentrates on issues that matter most to people: rights of return, demining, security sector reform. Today, let us pledge to deepen our cooperation and sharing of information. Let us explore how this can be done practically at every level, from headquarters to field missions. If concrete proposals emerge from our next staff-level talk next month, I would welcome them. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, securing peace also requires us to fully implement UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. 2010 marks its 10th anniversary. The eradication of sexual violence in conflict and the full inclusion of women in peace negotiations are not options. Both are prerequisites for sustainable peace. In June, the annual tripartite meeting between the United Nations, the OSCE, and the Council of Europe will review our progress in implementing Resolution 1325. We all look forward to other actions. The third area of future cooperation, that's elections. The United Nations is working in dozens of countries, providing technical advice in building democracy. As you may know, there are going to be at least 11 elections this year and next year in Africa only. Our electoral work has expanded in recent years, as has yours. The OSCE is widely seen as the gold standard in international election observation. I particularly encourage the OSCE to follow up on the recommendations it made in its report regarding necessary long-term electoral reforms. In the future, let us work together in concrete ways to build on our joint strength and put it to good use around the world. The fourth, the environment and development. You are making the essential connections between climate change, economic development, and security through your economic and environmental dimensions. We have before us two key opportunities for progress. First, to make the September's high-level plenary meeting on the Millennium Development Goals a great success. Second, to turn the commitments of the Copenhagen Accord into a legally binding climate change treaty. In the Balkans, Eastern Europe, the Southern Caucasus, and Central Asia, the United Nations and the OSCE are teaming up through the Environmental Security Initiative. These environmental challenges are extensive and varied, but solutions share a common denominator, that is cooperation. Again, we have only to look to Central Asia to recognize the dangers. In Uzbekistan a few days ago, I visited the Aral Sea. Where once there was a water, sea, I saw endless sand, a graveyard of ships. As waters recede, tensions will rise. It was shocking for me to have seen for myself that such a vast sea has shrunken to its only 13.5% its original size. I calculated for my own information. It was just two-thirds of South Korean whole territory. That was the size of that. This has become dry land with the salty, flat, vast salt flat. It was surprising and shocking to have witnessed. I remembered my own visit to Lake Chad. It seemed to me much, much more serious than the situation in Lake Chad. In any way, the fourth largest inland sea has become a small lake, and it is by any standard one of the worst environmental disasters of this international community. I saw this everywhere I visited over the past week. Rhetoric and emotion run high in all 5 capitals, often focusing on a single issue, the region's management of natural resources, that's water and energy. As I see it, this is a collective responsibility, shared among communities and shared among nations of the international community. It demands collective action, not only from the region's leader, but international community as a whole. For the United Nations, this is a great challenge. This is why we established our new Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy. Today, in this moment of urgent need, the time has come to think more ambitiously. If ever there were an opportunity for the UN and OSCE to partner in managing a potentially dangerous security situation, this is it. We need to work together with a full political engagement to bring the various parties to the negotiating table before tensions grow worse. 5th, human rights. There is no security without human rights. Again, at every stop of my visit to Central Asia, I spoke this basic truth. Robust civil society, grounded in the rule of law and human rights of free expression, free assembly, tolerance, and democracy is a powerful force for prosperity. Here again, the United Nations and the OSCE are working together closely. The Human Rights Council, for example, benefits from its exchange of information with OSCE institutions. We are often asked by many countries in question, how do you expect us to protect human rights when there is no peace? We have to keep peace first and security restored first before we talk about the human rights. How can we expect the human rights without the development? These are very seemingly pertinent questions. But I have made it quite clear to all my UN staff, senior advisors, and development agencies, and specialized agencies, then when there is some conflicts of interest or priority issues, the human rights should prevail over anything, particularly when it comes to development. Human rights is a universally accepted principle. This is an absolute value, and there can be no compromise, no second thought. The peace and human rights should go hand in hand. One may think that you cannot have full protection of human rights when there is no peace. It may sound reasonable. If there is no human rights, the peace and security cannot be sustainable. It may be just a temporary arrangement of peace and security. Therefore, I've been always urging that peace and security and justice, accountability, human rights should go hand in hand. Looking ahead, we can do more. One area for greater cooperation is a better follow-up to the reports and recommendations from various UN human rights bodies, such as the Universal Periodic Review. One's aim should be to avoid duplication and create synergies that advance our common goals. In all these matters, I welcome the commitment of the OSCE chairmanship, Kazakhstan, to the full fundamental values and principles of the OSCE, including those pertaining to human rights. I also applaud your efforts to organize a high-level conference on tolerance and non-discrimination in June. Excellencies, greater coordination and cooperation between the UN and OSCE is important, but it is not an end in itself. Our success will not be measured in terms of process or mechanisms. We will be judged by the difference we make in people's lives. We are all accountable. We must deliver. And I look forward to continuing to strengthen ties with the OSCE, a crucial partner in building a safer, better future for all. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.